And we're going to begin with the first three outstanding company presentations. Dan Boss, come forward, Microsoft, John B. from Nestle's, Kathy Hannon from KPMG. And while they're getting set up there, I'll introduce Jim Carney. I think many of you met Jim Carney last night. He's a senior partner in the international law firm of Latham & Watkins. He's also a member of the board of directors of the UN Global Compact Foundation. And so, Jim, take it from here.
Okay, thank you. Give me a for instance. Give me a for instance. That's what my mom and dad always used to say to us when we were growing up. When there was something that we didn't completely understand, or we didn't completely internalize, or we didn't completely understand how to act in response to it, they would say, always ask the question, give me a for instance. And that's what we're going to do right now in this panel. And for the next few panels that are going to come up, we're going to give you some instances and for instances of what you've heard about. And we're going to begin with Daniel Bross, who is the Microsoft Senior Director of Corporate Citizenship. He is been for over 25 years experienced in public, private, and not-for-profit sectors. He has led government affairs and policy teams both on the federal and state level for two Fortune 100 companies. Dan?
Good morning. Before I start, I want to make an observation. I'm from Microsoft, the company that created PowerPoint and brings you PowerPoint, and I'm not using PowerPoint. Don't tell anyone back in Redmond. I may not have another opportunity to speak outside of Redmond. But seriously, thank you very much to Notre Dame and to Father Williams for hosting this event, and for Georg for your leadership, and all of you for being here, for your commitment and your interest in talking about these important topics. Those of us that attended the dinner last night received some clear direction from Dean Wu, and that was to inspire and engage students. So while I care about the rest of you in this room who aren't students, I'm going to try to do what Dr. Wu said, which was to inspire and engage students. So I think most of the students are in the back, which is not surprising. I think that's where most students sit most of the time. I want to really talk about four things. I want to provide a bit of context into the way Microsoft looks at the UN Millennium Development Goals and the UN Global Compact. And then I want to talk more internally about the process Microsoft went through of endorsing the compact, issues around accountability, and issues around improvement and continual improvement. And I would sort of be remiss if I didn't state the obvious that we have heard earlier today, and that is the commitment really needs to come from the top. And on that note, I want to bring you greetings from Microsoft's chairman, Bill Gates, and commend him for his leadership in helping raise awareness for the UN Millennium Development Goals and the UN Global Compact. One of the speakers earlier had noted the business call to action that former Prime Minister Gordon Brown assembled, and Bill was part of that effort and continues to be, very involved in activities related to the UN Millennium Development Goals. I had the opportunity to spend some time with him in Davos in January, and he was talking about the need for more businesses to be engaged in the UN Millennium Development Goals and to understand their responsibility in helping achieve that goals, and clearly articulated to me his view that corporate leaders need to really step up to raise awareness not only within their organizations, but more importantly in different business gatherings that they attend. I have the opportunity to speak to business schools on a fairly regular basis in my role as Director of Corporate Citizenship at Microsoft. And one of the things that I usually start my talks with is a discussion around globalization, and try to help students, particularly in U.S. business schools, understand that while you may, hopefully, get a job with a leading U.S.-based corporation, your job is really not U.S.-based. Your job is a global job. And if U.S. corporations are hopeful in continuing to be successful in our global economy, it is absolutely essential for U.S.-based corporations to look outside of the boundaries of the United States and understand the cultural and economic differences globally. I mention that for a variety of reasons, not the least of which Microsoft is a global company. And more importantly, as a global company, every year we see more and more of our revenue being generated from sources outside of the United States. And I would expect that the other companies on this panel and other companies in the room have similar experiences. So if U.S. companies hope to compete globally and be successful in working in partnership with NGOs and governments globally, it is absolutely essential that U.S.-based companies understand the challenges and opportunities associated and that are real in the global marketplace. Our last speaker talked about the common good and a defined purpose. You said embrace a purpose. I think too many companies, and Microsoft is a good example, understand the importance of embracing a purpose a little late in their maturation process. Some of you in this room, although not all of you, some of you in this room will remember back in the early 90s, the mid-90s, when Microsoft had more than a few antitrust issues. I happened to be representing Microsoft at that point in Washington, D.C. as an outside consultant. And one of the things that I learned very quickly was that Microsoft had not defined itself. Microsoft was viewed by some consumers, a lot of regulators, and certainly our competitors as a very successful company with aggressive business practices. But we were not defined through who we are. What is our mission? What are our values? What do we stand for more than making Bill Gates the wealthiest man in the world and returning a lot of value to shareholders? So Microsoft, over the past 12 and a half or 13 years, has really pivoted to a company that now talks about the purpose that drives us and our mission and our values. When I had the opportunity to begin working in the corporate citizenship area at Microsoft, one of the first things I heard, and this was 8 years ago, one of the first things I heard, particularly from our subsidiary leaders, our country managers in Europe, was Microsoft is not defined with a purpose. Microsoft is silent on the UN Global Compact. Why isn't Microsoft engaged in the UN Global Compact? And over the next few years, we engaged in an internal discussion in Redmond about the importance of the compact. But that discussion, and we talked about this earlier, that discussion was really driven by our company leaders outside of the United States, because of the understanding and the importance that they saw being attached to the compact and the expectations that communities, governments, NGOs, members of civil society attached to the compact. So it was through the input that we got from our global subsidiaries that our leaders in Redmond understood that we had a responsibility to look at the compact and a responsibility to embrace the compact. You know, Microsoft is a software company, but we often say, at least for the Windows operating system, that we're a platform company. Well, I want to take that analogy from the IT world and apply it to the compact. In our CSR citizenship work, we really see the UN Global Compact and the UN Millennium Development Goals as the platform for the work that we do in meeting our responsibility to communities and to the global society. And it is through the platform of the Compact and the UN Millennium Development Goals that we talk about the work we do. You know, when I received the invitation to speak here, I was thinking, what should I talk about? And how do I talk about Microsoft's commitment to the UN Global Compact, the UN Millennium Development Goals? And what I decided I was not going to do was stand up here and give you a sales or marketing pitch. Now, I'm not going to stand up here and do that, but I will ask you to pick up, if you're interested, a copy of our Communications in Progress for the UN Global Compact and a report on the work Microsoft is doing to meet our commitments under the UN Millennium Development Goals. And these pamphlets are available in the back. You can read it. I'm not going to walk through what I consider to be all the good work we are doing. I do want to talk about, though, I talked about endorsement. I talked about the role that our subsidiaries played in helping our executive team in Redmond understand the importance of endorsing the compact. And I will say, particularly for US-based companies that are in the room, and I think this is something that Georg and others in the compact office are certainly aware of, one of the big hang-ups for a lot of US companies were around the labor principles in the compact. It was through dogged determination by a number of us internally that we worked through some of the people in our legal department. I sit in the legal department. Worked with some of my colleagues to understand that we were not exposing Microsoft to undue risk by endorsing the compact. And after that initial concern regarding the labor principles was addressed, everyone has fully embraced and understands the importance of how the compact informs our approach to our corporate citizenship program. Accountability. I really commend the compact for enforcing the communication on progress requirement. I was thrilled that, I think Georg said last night, some 2,000 companies were dropped from the compact. The communications on progress serves as not only an important communications tool and an enforcement tool for the compact, but it also helps companies look at reviewing our performance on a very regular basis. You know, at Microsoft, as I'm sure in most other companies, we have an annual performance review process. I'm held accountable for commitments I make at the beginning of the year, and I sit down with my manager and review all the good work I've done. Well, there's no reason signatories to the compact shouldn't be held to that same kind of process in reviewing commitments and obligations. Our communications on progress is due in the compact office each April. I'm pleased to tell you we've already filed it for this year. There was another good forcing function of being invited to this conference, made sure that we filed our communications prior to my speaking. But because our communications on progress is required in early April, we start an internal process in late fall of going to internal stakeholders, reminding them of our corporate responsibility and their individual or corporate department responsibility for specific provisions of the compact. And members of my team and I work internally to gather the information that we need to be able to file our communications on progress. So I guess at the end, the communications on progress not only is a very helpful carrot, but appropriately it is also serves itself as a very helpful stick. Improvements. I always say internally, citizenship is a journey, not a destination. I think commitment and work for any company to achieve its obligations under the UN Global Compact or the UN Millennium Development Goals is also a journey and a destination hopefully we will achieve, at least as it applies to the UN Millennium Development Goals and the 2015 deadline or goal. But the ongoing improvement that companies have to make internally, I think is sometimes overlooked by companies or by perhaps members of the Compact office. It is through the process that the Compact has put in place, through the communications on progress, and the carrot and stick that the Compact provide, that I'm able to go to individual stakeholders internally and hold up a copy of the Compact and say, well, we really don't have a choice here. I understand the business decisions, I understand the difficulties and the priorities that you are facing, but we have signed and endorsed the Compact, and we are held accountable for meeting our commitments under the Compact. So the opportunity that signing the Compact and adhering and committing to the UN Millennium Development Goals, the opportunity that provides people like me in companies across the United States and globally is a very important tool that I use on a very regular basis. So those are the remarks I wanted to share with you. Again, I appreciate being invited, and I very much appreciate Notre Dame hosting this conference and bringing all of us to South Bend. So thank you.
Thank you, Dan. Do we have any questions for Dan? Yes, sir.
Do you use global reporting initiative principles to measure, so to speak, those three types of performances, and how do you feel about it?
Yes, we do use the GRI, and I did not bring copies of our annual citizenship report with me, but if you go online, you can download a copy, and you'll see that we report according to the GRI. Quite honestly and candidly, I would like to see us go to the next level of reporting with the GRI. As I just said, it's a journey, not a destination. I'm also talking with stakeholders internally about third-party validation, looking at our reporting. One of the issues that I think a lot of companies are looking at, and we certainly are, is the notion of combined reporting. I happen to support a combined reporting approach as long as the number of pages is equally divided between the financial side of the house and the ESG side of the house. Not that the two are separate, they're not, they should be combined. This year we released our citizenship report the same day we released our annual report, which was a step in the right direction. But I would like to see some of this information plus what's in our citizenship report be reported on our annual report with the GRI referenced. Thank you.
Before we introduce our next speaker, let me just comment briefly. I applaud the points made about commitment from the top and accountability, so critically important. I had one of the best professional experiences I had after 37 years, or during 37 years of practicing law in the United States, was running my law firm's pro bono practice for 5 years. And what I learned from that, and this is primarily directed to the young people in the back, that yeah, it comes from the top, and that's critically important, and so is accountability. But the best things we did, I believe, were things that were generated, projects that were generated by the young people in the law firm, who came to our firm with the view that they wanted to make a contribution, and they used our platform to do it. I think of one associate who, on our vacation, on our own money, went to Kenya and came back with a client representation for us that involved 60 of our lawyers over a year-and-a-half process. representing the Southern Sudan in the early part of the Sudan peace process. And it brought the whole law firm together. I remember one night sitting in a conference room going over drafts of documents that we were producing for this client with lawyers from our Hamburg office, lawyers from our San Diego law office, Washington, D.C., and New York, where I was. It is a demonstration or illustration of the degree. This is a law firm that 25 years ago had no lawyers outside the United States and now has more than half of their lawyers outside of the United States, a firm that went from 600 lawyers to 2,000 lawyers. These initiatives came to us from our young people, not necessarily our European leaders. I think of another young lawyer in Europe who decided that we ought to bring pro bono practices to our Western Europe offices. Really didn't exist before. And we were initiators of the very first European pro bono conference, getting NGOs and law firms in Europe together in Budapest a couple of years ago to develop a clearinghouse for pro bono work. All came from people that were out of law school 1 or 2 years working on a platform where the firm had a commitment from the top and accountability. So when you guys go to work and you ladies go to work, you can have an impact immediately, and you don't have to get to the top. Yeah?
Dan, I think there are a lot of people that believe that in terms of CSR, that Europe is kind of the leader and America is coming along with certainly a lagging position. Related to your statement about influence within the company about becoming a signatory to this global compact, is that disproportionately coming from Europe or outside the country?
It was mostly coming from Europe and Asia. And I'm just being, honest. I would hope that, but that's 4 or 5 years ago. I would hope that the situation in U.S.-based global companies, is different now and has changed, because I believe there's a much greater awareness of the importance of the compact. There was also a political environment in this country at that time that did not necessarily embrace the compact. And I think we're at a different phase now. And I don't want anyone to interpret what I said to say that executives in Redmond were not supportive. They were. We wouldn't have endorsed the compact. But the issue was much more top of mind and much more, I think, urgent for some of the folks who led some of our subsidiaries, and for people who were not in leadership roles also. Individuals who run our citizenship initiative in various countries in Europe and in Asia understand the importance of the compact. And I hear from them regularly when the compact, through the work the compact is doing to set up these country networks, where we will have countries, Microsoft in Vietnam or Microsoft in Cambodia, wanting to endorse the compact. And I try to explain to them, well, we are already signatories to the compact. You don't need to endorse it, or you're going to have to file a communications on progress. So there's lots of support at the grassroots level.
I think the record will indicate that non-U.S. multinationals took the lead in a global compact from its initiation, and the U.S. firms then moved in behind that. And I think my profession is somewhat responsible for that, as well as for the social and cultural differences. And that is, there were legal hurdles in the United States for U.S.-based firms joining the compact. Namely, you can get sued in Mississippi based on what you say you're going to do. And those legal hurdles didn't face firms that were based and did most of their work in jurisdictions outside the United States. That is changing right now to our great benefit, I think.